Hello and welcome back to Cupid. Alright, let's I've got the mature content filter on. I should be able to get through this scene without having to censor anything, but let's see how uncomfortable this makes me. This was different. This was... Do you love me, Catherine? Guillaume, Her voice came out throaty and thick. Guillaume laid her down on the bed. Oh god, I am very British about this. Okay. Right. Professional, calm, deep breath. Guillaume dug his tongue on the hollow of her neck as his hands explored her. The soft sounds returned to her lips, but Guillaume covered them with his mouth. Her voice echoed in their heads. She wanted to scream, and the scream would come from the very deep. Do you love me? Oh God, I love you, she said in an urgent, desperate frenzy. A high-pitched sob escaped her mouth as something snapped inside her, and Catherine opened her eyes. She caught something alarming as she stared up at him. He didn't look like Guillaume in the shadows unlicked by candlelight. His features were the same, his eyes were in the same place, his nose and lips were the same shape. But this man was a stranger. He did not care for her, like how a snake did not care for its prey. For a brief second she was afraid. A tiny voice told her to run away, but that voice was washed away by a wave of carnal desire. The stranger grinned at Catherine. Mine. Faster now, deeper his kisses went, as if reaching for something inside her. His weight on her body excited her, but it also felt like a prison. Run, rabbit! Run, rabbit, run! Catherine viciously devoured his lips. Her hands cruised south, kneading and clutching greedily. Her legs were draped around his waist, and a force overtook her. A hunger. Here comes the farmer's gun. She tried to ignore the growing coldness in Guillaume's eyes, tried to ignore the way her body moved on its own. Run, rabbit, run. Her eyes found deep clasps of his trousers, and she undid them. Quickly now, quickly. He bit on her shoulder, and she felt more of his teeth than his lips on her body. Catherine scolded herself for being aroused. Her mounting terror only served to aggravate her urges. She wanted this. I want this. She was hungry. I'm hungry. She heard a man snicker. He wants the farmer's pie. Don't stand idly by. Run, rabbit, run. His tongue raked at her neck, and he gripped her hair so tight it hurt. Is anybody else a little bit creeped out by this scene? I mean a lot. Catherine gasped. The shiver was from both pleasure and fear, a dangerous mix. But it was cruel. There was no warmth, just cold, hard greed. And yet she couldn't help but want him. She wanted to please him, and with her every movement Catherine felt her energy wither away. A heady, nauseous feeling of malady was clawing at her. What was missing? What was taken away? She didn't know what was gone until it was, and the final scream of protest died in her mind. For that was the last that was left of her lucidity. The urge to escape left. No more reasons to stop. Catherine moaned. Stop? No, I must not stop. Why did I even think that? What if he'd hate her? It was an agonizing thought. She had to give him more. Her eyes observed her with a cold amusement. Catherine touched his chest in reverence. His eyes were cold, but his body was like fire. Interesting symbology. Little bit weird. Kinda left field, but let's go with it. In her mind's eye, he had started to become something else. A winged creature engulfed in flame. Hot and cold and magnificent. Beautiful and terrible. Dark and light. At times she would be on the bed with a man she might remember as the one she once loved. Another time she would be floating suspended on a dark chasm of flesh. There was a creature with her. Somebody she both loathed and adored. Sometimes there were two people. Sometimes there was only him. Only him. The woman called Catherine didn't exist. She was merely an extension of his mind. Soon all of her would be gone, little by little disintegrating to be a part of him forever. Oh, bliss! She was prepared to give everything to him. It didn't even seem a worthy sacrifice to lay at his feet. But no. All he asked for was her heart. That small, pathetic thing. It had always been his anyway. She gave it gleefully. She was so generous and considerate, benevolent, fair. She worshipped him. He was her god. Please want me. Please find me pretty. She craved his love above anything else, above fear and confusion, above the mourning as something precious lost. Love me, please, love me, she begged. I'll do anything for you. Anything. His lips did not move, save for a smile. The words simply dropped in her head, echoed and took root. Catherine's eyes lost their glimmer. Anything. Then tell me again. I want to hear it. That was one of the creepiest sex scenes I've ever seen. And I've read Deus Machina Demon Bane. Do you love me, Catherine? Her name on his lips was the only reminder of her former self. I do. I love you. I love you so much. A wave of fire burnt her lips as their mouths entwined. His passion heightened, his back arched. Sweat beaded on his forehead and traced his temple. What a wondrous sight. He was ice beginning to thaw, a sun on the verge of eclipse, his coldness replaced by a radiating heat that melded and fastened to her, like him, like fire, with metal. Really? Do you really love me? Yes, she screamed. Yes, yes! The candle fizzled out, and beneath the depths of her hazy mind she was relieved she did not have to look at his face. Yeah, that's never a good sign. She tastes just like the richest of chocolates, the finest wine. I can't stop. My whole body shivers with the taste of her. Her breath on my neck, her fingers scratching at my back. Her lust gives me the sustenance to move faster, to devour her faster. Stop! I knew waiting so long would be worth it. I've been her lover for years, and this flavour is divine. My head spins, my appetite swells. I can't stop. I could feel her excitement mounting with her helplessness. I lick my lips in delight. I haven't breathed so deeply for a long time. You're taking too much. Her love is exquisite, laced with anger, reverence, disappointment, pain, memories. All different relishes and morsels melding into one. Stop it! Is he an incubus? That's my current theory. Given that they've, assuming that Rosa isn't mad and magic actually exists, he's acting like an incubus. If you're not aware, an incubus is the male variant of a succubus. It's a creature that feeds on life force through sex. And according to most of the mythology, the stronger the connection they have to the person, the more life force they drain from them and the more effective they are. And and of course, different variations of the mythology do it different ways. In some versions, shagging a succubus will kill you. In some, it will just leave you really weakened, and you'll actually rather get a pleasant experience out of it, though you have had a bit of your life force drained. So, that's what this is what it feels like at the moment. That he's an incubus. Anyway, her love is a delicacy. You're destroying her. I can't stop myself. I haven't tasted this kind of love for so long. Flirtations and physical attraction can only get me by for so long. I was going to wait. There is a waning in her love, confusion, doubt, but that helping of guilt tinged the flavour perfectly, and I must feed now. Her love is the most perfect tonight. My body wants her. I couldn't stop now, even if I wanted to. Liar. And I almost let you escape. To save her. I almost ran away. To love her. I love her. And tomorrow? Maybe. What will become of her? I will find another. Next time. Something insignificant. I want to relish this taste a bit more. No! No! With every move I feel her love osmose into my other mouth. She clings to me, her moans louder, her bare chest glistens with sweat. Oh, she is beautiful. It won't be long now. The final drawing a breath. Do you love me, Catherine? Give me all your love. All of it. Give it to me. I want it all. It's mine. Mine. Catherine, give me more. I want more. 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 Yeah. Rosa stood in front of the door to Catherine's room, her hand raised to knock, but she didn't move. Doubt was creeping into her mind like a spider crawling on a wall. She remembered the feeling of hunger from the night they had kissed. It was both familiar and utterly alien, like an instinct, an urge she hadn't felt for a long time. A shiver ran down her spine at the memory. She's avoiding me, isn't she? She hadn't seen Catherine for a few days since that night. She'd been spending a lot of time in her room alone, locked away in her room. Whenever Rosa saw her in the chateau, she would excuse herself and leave. Rosa never got the courage to push the issue. But days had passed, and Catherine's behaviour had begun to worry her even more. Can we get a response from the mother that's nice? Please? God, making us choose between all these horrible, horrible things to say to her is just nasty. She's just selfish like everyone else. What did you expect? She used you as an experiment, and now that her curiosity is sated, she's done with you. You don't matter to her, you probably never did. Which is a good thing, darling. You see her true face. No matter. She's never going to love you like Mother does. Like all the others, she's going to leave you in the end, and then you're all alone. Only Mother will stay with you forever and love you. So be a good child. Listen to what I tell you. Rosa bit her lower lip. This was all her fault, wasn't it? She needed to make it right. If Rosa talked to her properly, she was sure they would come to an understanding. She had to explain to her... What exactly? They'd both been drunk and the kisses didn't mean anything? Her stomach churned at that thought. In the end, it didn't matter what Rosa wanted. Catherine obviously regretted what had happened. She didn't want to lose her friend because of too much wine. Rosa gently knocked on Catherine's door. Catherine, may I come in? Please, Catherine, I'm sorry for the mess, but can we talk? Rosa waited for an answer, but none came. Rosa turned the handle slowly and entered. Unusually, Catherine's room was brightly lit. The windows let in a fresh breeze, often carrying the sweet smell of flowers in the spring. Right now, however, the curtains were drawn closed. The few candles burning on a desk weren't enough to banish the darkness completely. The air hung heavy in the room. Catherine didn't turn around when the door opened. She just stood there, unmoving in front of a wall. The sound of something scratching along a rough surface filled the air. Rosa felt a shiver run down her spine at the sound. Her muscles tensed instinctively. She approached Catherine slowly and apprehensively. When she came closer, she could hear that Catherine was whispering the same few words over and over again. He loves me. He loves me not. Catherine giggled. He loves me. He loves me not. Catherine? Are you all right? Rosa stopped next to Catherine and peered at her outstretched hand. In the dim light, it took a moment to make sense of what she saw. Catherine was scratching at the wall. The damage she had done to the wall was nothing compared to what she had done to her fingers. Cath? Oh my God, Catherine, stop! Rosa's guts twisted horribly. She grabbed Catherine's shoulder to turn her around away from the wall. She blinked a couple of times before finally reacting to Rosa's presence. Tears welled up in Catherine's bloodshot eyes at the sight of her friend, spilling over her pale cheeks and chapped lips. She held on tightly to Rosa and started sobbing uncontrollably. Cath, what's going on? Why are you hurting yourself? Catherine tried to pull herself together as best she could, wiping her nose on the sleeve of her soiled dress. It was heart-wrenching to look at the mess that her friend had become. Rosa, you need to help me. You need to protect me from him. Don't let him touch me. Who? Let him... What? Why do you need me to protect you? Suddenly Catherine shushed her, a finger to her lips, and with a scared expression on her face. She leaned an ear towards the door and listened intensely for a moment. Oh, he's here. The scared expression turned into a manic and frightened glee. I think he's coming. Go at me, honey. Go at me, I love you. After yelling the last words, Catherine started sobbing again, with more tears streaming down her face. Before Rosa could try to console her, her sobs faded into hysterical laughter. It barely left time for her to gasp for breath. Oh, Gully me, I love the way you pull me so close to hug me, and how kind you are to everyone you meet, and your eyes, What is going on here? Guillaume stood in the door, frowning. His eyes wandered across the room and caught sight of Catherine. His face froze in shock. Catherine stared wide-eyed for a second, and then she snarled at him like a ferocious animal. "You bastard! Get out of my room! Get lost!" She stormed over to the desk and grabbed a letter opener from the table, and with this weapon in a firm grip and malice in her eyes, she rushed to Guillaume. "Don't you dare show your face to me!" "Catherine, no!" The knife plunged into Guillaume's arm. Blood quickly stained his sleeve red, but Catherine only recoiled to strike back with no hint of stopping. "Oh my God! Catherine!" They wrestled for a moment until Guillaume was able to grab Catherine's hand. She dropped the letter opener and stumped to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Rosa quickly pulled up the blade and stepped out of reach. When she turned around, Guillaume had already pulled Catherine into a tight embrace. Between her sobs and hiccups, Rosa could hear her apologizing. "Oh God, I'm sorry, Guillaume. What? I'm sorry. Do you love me? Please, Guillaume, do you love me?" She repeated the question over and over again, no matter how many times Guillaume reassured her. It was probably a good idea to find something to calm her down. Rosa didn't feel completely at ease doing so, but she left her friend alone with the Marquis for a few minutes. Later she returned with a glass of water laced with valerian root. Guillaume had already coaxed Catherine to lie down on her bed, while Rosa helped her drink the nightcap. They watched her in silence as she drifted into a fitful sleep. Guillaume and Rosa left the room. They didn't speak for a while, both still dazed and shocked by the turn of events. "How is your arm?" Guillaume hid the injured arm away from view. "Fine. It was just a scratch." The bleeding hadn't stopped yet, and Rosa could tell the cut was deeper than Guillaume left on. "What's happening? What's gotten into Catherine?" Guillaume just shrugged, with a cold expression of worry on his face. "I wish I knew, Rosa. The state she's in scares me, to be honest. It might be an onset of an episode waiting to happen, like her sister before." Rosa's mouth tightened. "How dare you say that? She is not crazy!" Rosa searched his face for traces of a lie, but it was like a mask contorted by worry. She couldn't tell whether he was lying or telling the truth. "She asked me to protect her from you. Did you hurt her?" "You know I would not. She is unwell. It seems I am the target of her psychotic state. That is all I know. But why?" "Stop. Stop it, Rosa. It hurts me too, seeing her like this. Please, stop questioning me further. I am going to call for a physician. Please, stay with her in the meantime. See that she doesn't harm herself again." For a moment he met her eyes. Before she could say more, however, he turned around and left. "See if his pants have caught fire yet, child." There was nothing she could do about him for now. Rosa left to get a bowl of fresh water and a towel to tend to Catherine's fingers. Catherine had an uneasy sleep while Rosa cleaned her wounds as best she could. She muttered, squealed, and whimpered like a child. It seemed that she was having a nightmare, but Rosa didn't dare wake her before the physician arrived. Instead, she stroked her hair and told her that everything would be all right. She tried to appease the growing confusion of voices in her head. What had happened between Catherine and Guillaume? Their relationship was so often erratic, but Rosa dismissed the possibility that this was one of their usual fights. Rosa remembered Catherine's face, filled with utter spite at the man. She'd never seen that much hatred in Catherine. After a few minutes, Catherine's eyelids fluttered open. She looked around with some confusion, and her gaze settled on Rosa. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Rosa!" Rosa held her outstretched hand, and her heart broke when she saw Catherine wince. "Oh, Rosa, I'm so scared. Everything is such a mess." "It's going to be all right, Kath. Don't worry now. Just try to sleep some more." No, you don't understand." Catherine tried to sit up, but Rosa pushed her down gently. "You need rest, Kath." "I hate him. This is all his fault." She sniffed, but settled down on her pillow once more, and when she spoke again it was in a whisper. "Rosa, She chewed on her dry, chapped lips, and for a moment, as if she couldn't get the words out. "I don't think I love him anymore." "What?" A dry sob escaped her, followed by tears rolling down her cheeks. Right, at this point there are two possibilities that I see. Either this is a story of a incubus preying on various people and so on and so forth, or this is the story of, a mentally ill family and their mentally ill friend. Because at the moment it could well be either. They're deliberately not making it obvious which it is. And oh boy, are these sensitive topics. So we'll see. Had Catherine really just said that? But I don't understand this. When I think of him, Her voice cracked. She shuddered under the blanket like an ill breeze had sprung into the room. It's like bugs crawling under my skin. I can't bear to look at him anymore. I just can't. I can't even say his name. Why? Do you remember when exactly you started feeling this way? That night. Rosa winced. Catherine covered her face with her hands. It was a horrible night. Rosa's chest hurt. Was all this her fault? She didn't know what she had done, but she didn't do something to her? I'm sorry. Catherine went on like she hadn't heard her. I went to his room. We spent the night together. Rosa waited for Catherine to continue, but the girl stared blankly. She just stopped speaking, as if forgetting that she had ever spoken at all. Kath, did he hurt you that night? No. Maybe. Catherine shook her head. I don't know. She grabbed her head and sobbed. The grip on Rosa's heart tightened. How can this be? Her eyes drowned in tears. I love him, Rosa, don't I? I remember everything. I love him, I know I do. I'm sure I do. But I hate him too, to the very core. I want to hurt him, punish him, for something. I want to snuff the breath from his throat, but sometimes Catherine's eyes went blank. I just don't care for him at all. Sometimes I feel nothing at all, and that scares me even more. She laid on the bed, quiet now, letting the tears flow out of her eyes without wiping them. I'm going mad, Rosa. Catherine. I am, aren't I? Like my sister, like my mother. It runs in our blood. They said I'm a child of a mad woman. They said I'm going to turn out exactly like her. Rosa stroked her hair and tried her best to soothe her, saying that everything would be all right. They were empty words, but she did not know what else to say. She wanted them to be true so badly, for her friend's sake as well as her own. Was Gillimy really the source of Catherine's confusion and pain? Pangs of guilt pricked her like tiny needles. Or was this her fault? Rubbish, you fool! This is all his fault, I can feel it! We must get to the bottom of this. Yes, Mother. Rosa looked down upon her best friend and nodded slightly to herself. Everything will be all right, Catherine, I promise. She would make it all right somehow. She had to. The physician arrived shortly, but he did little to help Catherine. Catherine never regained her personality. She remained moody and irritable, breaking into fits of hysterical laughter or heartbreaking sobs at seemingly random intervals. Gillimy and Rosa would take turns to tend to her. Her moods fluctuated, her temper uncontrollable, and there were times when she begged for the attention from Gillimy, almost clinging to him in despair, never letting him out of her sight. And other times she could not stand his very presence. Soon, neither Gillimy nor Rosa could console her any more. She withdrew entirely from the household. She starved herself, stopping coming to meals, stopped caring for herself. Her manic episodes degraded into long stretches of blank silence. Emptiness ruled her life. Looking at her eyes in those last days, it was like a fire had been snuffed out behind them. Like the star that had been shining through them had imploded. Chapter 5. Psyche. Yes, this is a very, very odd game, I've got to say. It's delving into some issues that... Let's face it, I'm the guy who says that no issue should be out of the range of video game storytelling, but there are some things you have to handle with a certain amount of care. And I won't really know until I reach the end whether they really manage to handle it well, so we'll see. Either way, stretchy again. In the once slumbering town, the streets were alive with flowers. Pretty young girls, wrapped in thin white dresses, lined their rows, tittering excitedly among themselves. Each maiden was armed with a basket brimming with flowers, and when the clock struck 8, it was the given signal. Girl by girl, the rows progressed down the crowded street, their dresses twirling as they danced. Colour scatters as they unloaded their baskets. Delilahs, tulips, orchids, poppies, sweet peas, they all spiraled across the air and into the hands of the startled citizens. The young men on the street sprang into action. They cheered and hooted and clapped and laughed as the girls curtsied to them in return. Some intrepid boys even dared to blow a kiss, hoping for a reward. And when the girls blew kisses back, they reddened to the tips of their ears and hooted in joy. "Rose! Hey, Rose!" At first she didn't know who he was talking to. But then she saw the rose he flourished in front of her like a gentleman's magic trick. "I'll have to call you something, right? How about Rose?" This particular boy had been at her tail for several days now. The flower festival was a good excuse for romance. It was around this time that the young men of the town went around wooing their prospective lovers. Most would have gone for a taller, more outspoken type of girl, but for some reason this boy was smitten with her. "Go on, take it." She shook her head, and she knew she didn't deserve it. "Again with that still-combed act. Come on, you're breaking my heart." He laughed gaily, enjoying the thrill of courtship. "Why? Why do you love me so much? Is that what's bothering you? I'll tell you one thing, Rose. You'd better remember this for the rest of your life. When someone loves somebody else, no need for a reason. I just love you, Rose. Won't you at least smile at me?" "You love me?" He flashed his best youthful grin. "Sure I love you, to the moon and back." She knew she shouldn't take the rose. She knew it was wrong. And yet she also knew in this instant that her face was burning hot, and her fingers closed upon the rose. Even as she felt the thorns in her skin, she still held on to it. The expression on the boy's face was one of absolute bliss. He hooted and did a little dance. "I do love you, Rose, I really do." He grinned at her. And to her surprise she found herself smiling back. A warm, pleasant feeling gushed inside her. It was like tucking into a hot, home-cooked meal. "Mother, I'm home." Nowadays she and her mother lived in a quiet cottage far from the main streets. The joy and exuberance of the flower festival had long since faded away now, leaving her with the stillness of the lonely house. "Mother, are you home?" There was no answer, not even a sound. Usually her mother would have heard the door open by now. She would have run up, plastered her with hugs and kisses. Now, however, the unnerving silence meant one of two things. One, Mother was not here, which wasn't possible because Mother was always here. Or two, Mother was angry. Rosa felt a chill run down her spine as she realized. Was it possible that Mother had had suspicions, had followed her? "Mother, I'm coming inside now." The sound of the door closing was like a clash of thunder, and Rosa, bowing her head, descended deeper into the house. Mother was in the kitchen. She was bent down with her back to the doorway, washing clothes in a wooden basin. She looked just like a normal mother, but Rosa knew better. Because just above her mother hung the cross, a heavy wooden crucifix, and it had been there as long as Rosa could remember. It was so solid that if it were to drop it would crush someone's toe. The girl knew this as well, having felt the cross so many times. She knew exactly how heavy it was. The sharp corners of the cross were especially capable of drawing blood, and Mother dipped her hands into the water. Squish, squish. She crushed the clothes in a vice grip. "Where did you go?" Her sudden question sliced through the air, and Rosa almost jumped out of her skin. Just the marketplace, Mother." She tried to press the plump red rose behind her, to stomp on it and make it disappear into the ground. But it was too late. Mother stood up. "Mother, it's not what you think, I swear. I'm not planning to see him again, I just wanted to make him happy, that's all." If Rosa looked at Mother any longer, she thought her courage would dry up, so she quickly glanced at her feet. I'll throw away the rose, I'll make sure you never see it again, so..." The blow came so fast she never expected it. Suddenly she was on her knees, her skull throbbing in pain. She just looked up in time to see Mother raise the cross another time. Fear overtook her, and although she knew there was no use in running, she scrambled away all the same. "Mother, I'm sorry, I won't do it again." "How much do you think raising a child costs, you little rat?" Mother, please." Undeterred, the cross slammed hard into Rosa's collarbone. She shrieked and rolled over and tried to get back to her feet. "I clothe you, I house you, I even feed you, and I protect you from everything that might harm you, and yet I ask nothing in return, absolutely nothing. Didn't I tell you not to go to that festival? Yet you can't help shaking your hips at those men, can you? You are to avoid them, didn't I say it?" Up and down came the cross, and by now Rosa had resorted to curling up into a ball and covering her eyes. Oh, sweet merciful Jesus, am I really narrating a scene of domestic violence? Yeah, this is one of the most depressing things I've played in quite a while. Either way, that's a good point to end this part, so thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next.